Next up, a woman that I am so grateful to have gotten to know over the past few months. Francie Kleckley is our candidate for State Senate District 10. And I could not be more behind somebody, so Francie, come on up, and thank you for being our rep.
All right, thank you, sir. So I'm just going to say Jonah for president. I mean, ditto. What a motivating speech. I hope that that I can say something meaningful after all of that. So it is wonderful to see such a good crowd of Democrats this morning. That's right. And as always, thank you to Bill, Jamel, the Democratic Party leadership here in Greenwood for giving me a few minutes to speak. And so I really want to talk today about reclaiming our identity as Democrats. And so I'm going to start with a quote from Michelle Obama, who spoke these words in her final remarks as First Lady. And I feel connected to her hope and to her words, and I hope that you will too. So she says, "It is our fundamental belief in the power of hope that has allowed us to rise above the voices of doubt and division, of anger and fear that we have faced in our lives and in the life of this country. Our hope that if we work hard enough and believe in ourselves, that we can achieve whatever we dream, regardless of the limitations placed on us by others." Now, to me, that embodies the democratic principle, and certainly I do think Michelle Obama is just a fabulous first lady, rock star. I hope you will find those words as empowering as I do. So I have been on this journey for a few months now, and one of the first things that I did is I came to the Greenwood Democratic Convention. I walked in here. Woo, you were all strangers. I am happy to say that that I feel like many of you are good friends now. And I've talked about the things that I believe we should try to achieve in South Carolina. I talked to you about my upbringing in Bennettsville, of parents that didn't have an education, and I watched how hard they had to work running small businesses and full-time jobs. I've talked to you about how I've raised my 2 children in Lexington my entire adult life as a single parent. And I've told you about my 36-year career at the IRS and the things that I learned about the impact of government on everyday people and the work that I did to try to help the citizens of our nation. I told you all of this to demonstrate that I have done the work, and I am now happily retired, but I am out of retirement and I'm stepping up and stepping out to hopefully use those skills again. So I've gotten to spend some time over the past few months getting involved in activities in Greenwood, knocking doors, making phone calls, and so I want to share some of my takeaways, which hopefully we can turn into action items as a Democratic Party. What I have found is there are a lot of Democrats behind those doors, and they are thrilled to see someone knock on their door and talk about things that align with their values. And then they'll say things like, well, I mean, we're the only house. We're the only house. And I can say, because I have access to files, no, you're in good company. There's 5 more Democrats on your street or whatever it is, or in your subdivision. But I have been pleasantly surprised at the number of Democrats that I have found, and the fact that I could share that there are others. Then I have found folks behind those doors that are truly fearful. They're fearful both of the issues that are impacting their lives, and they're fearful because of the aggressive nature of our extreme right politicians. They're too fearful to openly discuss their political views or their political affiliation. Many times it's done in a whisper. That hurts my heart. There's also people that I've found that truly need assistance from our state government. And either there is not a clear path for them, they lack the ability to navigate the bureaucracy, or they don't understand their options. That's our job to take care of them. I find women, lots of women who are frustrated and angry and fearful about the government control over their health care and reproductive rights. And in some cases, I have found a level of desperation and a lack of hope. I receive emails and phone calls as a result of flyers that I leave on the door, and people tell me these horrific stories. My heart just goes out to them, and the more I do this, the more I want to do this. And so I believe that it is past time for us good Democrats to reclaim our identity. And so one of the things when I talk to people in groups or at their doors, I try to remind them who we are as Democrats. And we have to be vigilant in defining who we are as Democrats. We're the party of hope. We're the party of equality. We're the party of fairness for all. We lift each other up. And for the most part, we're just a bunch of well-intentioned, good people. But what we are not as a party, we are not about fear-mongering. We do not spread misinformation, lies, and alternative facts to incite rage and negative reactions. We're not the party of divisiveness. We are the party of togetherness. We're not the party that hides behind the Holy Bible to justify hatred towards anyone that is fundamentally different than themselves. Yet we still whisper about our political leanings. It's a mystery to me. That's why I think it's time that we start talking about our values, because they are good values. We are good people. So when I was a little girl growing up in Bennettsville, my parents, because I was an only child, they gave me some similar advice to the things I'm telling you today. My mom and dad encouraged me to be the best version of myself at whatever I did, to stand up for what's right, and to take care of our neighbors and friends. That is the embodiment of democratic principles in the way I see it. So I was in the thick of my government career, spending lots of weeks in D.C. I was there when Barack Obama was elected. I enjoyed a highly functioning relationship with our congressmen and women and their staffers, where you could have debate and dialogue, whether it was a privacy concern, a cyber attack, undue taxpayer burden, the instrument we give people when we would lose their personally identifiable information to help mitigate any kind of negative impact. I enjoyed that relationship. Of course, we were at the Internal Revenue Service always in a hearing and testimony before our congressman. And one of the things they always liked to do was point out that Trey Gowdy was from South Carolina. And he was one of the, they called him the crazies, because I was the only South Carolinian. Somehow it was my fault. I was proud to take my niece and her best friend a young black girl, to Obama's inauguration, to tour them around D.C., I felt hopeful. I felt like the future was brighter. I was hopeful that we had not only a Democrat for a president, but a black man for a president. I had hoped that the racial tensions of this country would ease, the inequities would shrink. Boy, was I wrong. It seems that instead of healing and valuing others as equal, we became more polarized. There is now a powerful faction of the Republican Party that totally hates anyone that doesn't think like them and see the world like them. I think you know them by their names: the Freedom Caucus, Moms for Liberty, and I know my all-time favorite, the Christian Nationalists, who believe, or who tell you they believe, that Donald Trump was sent by God to punish anyone that did not look and behave and heave to his word. So I don't pretend to know everyone's maker, God, higher power, whatever you want to call it, but my God is one of love, peace, mercy, and grace. So the voices of doubt and division that Michelle Obama talked about, they've become too loud for too long for us to ignore. The Republican trifecta in South Carolina, Republican governor, Republican House, Republican Senate, they have been in full charge for 20 years, which has left us in worse shape than ever. I personally would be ashamed of how the patriarchy, misogyny, homophobia, and just pure self-interest has shaped the lawmakers' agenda for our state. When I talk about agenda, here's what it's led us to. Gun violence in our schools, our homes, our churches, our public facilities has become a pandemic. You can't turn the news off without seeing where there was a shooting. The government has chosen to eliminate women's choices over their own health care. We have a state that turned away federal money to feed the poorest of our children. Who does that? Shameful. And so we see our school boards becoming a cultural battleground for ultra-conservative rights. And now, be forewarned, I'm going to get into my inner IRS self. I'm going to talk about what we do with our tax dollars. So, we also have a government in South Carolina who wants to use our tax dollars to give private school tax credits and school vouchers. Essentially, that will erode our public education. Now, we're already 42nd in the nation. It's not like we're high achievers already. I think every child in South Carolina deserves a quality public education. We have a government that turned away Medicaid expansion. Now, this is my, kind of inner IRS self. Now, we've paid taxes on that money already. Not only did it leave 345,000 South Carolinians, 82,000 of which are children, without affordable health care, but check your pay stub, we've paid taxes on that money that's now in another state helping other people. The price tag on that decision over the next 10 years is $28 billion. We have to bring that money back. Have to bring that money back. And then, yet, after the debacle over the misplacement of education lottery scholarship money, where the state treasurer was ousted, we find $1.8 billion in a bank account that seemingly no one knows where the money came from, where it came from, or what it was intended for. This mystery dates back not just over one cycle, but 10 years. And so now, with your tax dollars, our folks have allocated $5 million to pay private accountants to sort out where the money is. Should have done it right the first time. I'm sorry, my inner IRS self knows that that is mismanagement of taxpayer funds. And so I will ask you, do you want Billy Garrett, John McCravey, and their buddies running our state going forward? No, I can tell you the answer to that. So if you see the picture much like I do, much like I have painted it for you, it is now to put our democratic convictions into play, square our shoulders, roll up our sleeves, and get to work. I am saying yes to my doubts and fears by running for this office. And yes, it is a grueling game. But it is people like you that have welcomed me so warmly that continues to give me the courage. It's the people behind those doors who need our help. And I continue to remind myself that we are the party of inclusion, compassion, empathy, just and kind qualities, and are admirable, and we have nothing to be ashamed of. And so, like I said, part of the reason I'm saying yes is because folks like you, here in Greenwood, you have built the big tent where white, black, gay, straight, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, all the things are welcome and respected. And there's many of you out there who I have gotten to know, who have supported me, who have reached out, who have offered help. Many of the folks who are sitting in the room right now. I see my good friends Cindy and Anthony down there. There you go. And certainly Bill and Jamel. I see Mama Nickerson over there. And you know, folks that aren't here, certainly Alan, George, Carl, and Rebecca, who is helping me find an office space here in Greenwood so that I can get to know you better and I can get to know you on a more informal basis. And then there's Rusty Wilson back there, who picked up 40-something of my signs and has stored them for me. I think he's going to rent them back to me today, though, maybe. So just wonderful people. And then I'm going to give one more shout out because I think it's kind of funny. It is Susie Holloway. The first day I came up here, now she didn't know me from Adam's house cat, and she immediately said, now I know you're going to need to spend the night in Greenwood and you're welcome to stay with me. And I'm thinking, you know, that is above and beyond. And then there's folks like Tori and Deb, constant support. Now the joke's going to be on Susie when I roll up with my little U-Haul and say I'm here for the next 4 months. No, just kidding. And so I'll add, you really, you know, I have been in these other county party meetings. You are so fortunate to have good candidates to rally around and support. Yeah, I'm including myself in that. Who are we kidding? But you've got Brian Best at the congressional level. You've got Francie Kleckley, Bill Kimler, Jamel Brooks, and Mr. Robinson. Is Mr. Robinson here? I don't think I've seen him. At the county level. And so because your party is so well organized, I think you are perfectly positioned to be helpful. Again, I said we've got to rally, we got to roll up our sleeves. My mom and daddy used to say anything worth having is worth working for. And so I'm going to give you a little call to action here today. The first thing is to be armed with the facts. Educate yourself about the issues at stake, what the facts are, because you know there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so one of the sources for that, and shamelessly I like to use this source, is your own party. The fact that we put out those sheets with the issues, and now Bill has done something on Project 2025, that is an excellent source of factual information. And then, now this is going to be a shameless plug, and I'm sure I'm going to get some Bill Kimler Freedom Water for it later, but the Black, White, and Blue in the South podcast. I mean, that is some truth-telling right there. That's what they really think. So that is a source for staying up to date. And so then I charge you with, everyone has a skill or a talent. You know, I like knocking the doors. Some people like making phone calls. Some people like writing postcards. But everyone brings something to this, and everyone has got to get to work with whatever the skill they bring. And so we would all love it if you would volunteer to do something to push our candidacy forward. And I would challenge each of you to talk to your fair-minded friends. You know, I can't send you into the thicket of the hard right, but I believe that 70% of America is right here in the middle, and we all have some shared values. And so talk with your friends, and if, you know, you got friends that, you know, are not happy about paying taxes, then channel Francie's inner IRS self and talk about what they're doing with our tax dollars. Because if they used them wisely, maybe we wouldn't have to pay so much in taxes. Or if it's a woman who is concerned, you know, or a young woman or a niece or whatever about women's reproductive rights, talk to them about that. The Medicaid issue, meet the folks where they are, talk about the facts, and explain that there are candidates that they can vote for that can help resolve these bad laws. So I challenge each of you to do that. All of these candidates, we need your time and we need your talents to help us get through this. The other thing is the power of social media. Now, not everybody likes it, not everybody enjoys it, but if you take a yard sign, or if you're wearing a t-shirt, or if you were generally somehow representing one of us, take a picture, post it on social media, share with your friends. And I will say that we are all in South Carolina, which is a small town, and we all know people who can vote in this, whether it's District 12, 13, or 10. Make those phone calls. Commit to calling your fair-minded friends and follow through and make sure they get to the polls. You can put out some yard signs. One of the things I learned door knocking is people were so fearful. There were two types of folks. They were fearful if they put out a sign for a Democrat about the retribution from their neighbors. The other part of it was there were people who wanted a sign just to aggravate their neighbors. I like them. But there are folks who, you know, can talk with you about what they need from state government. And I encourage you to let us, your candidates, know what those issues are if you think we are not aware of those. And never forget the power of the vote. I know I'm preaching to the choir, and I know everyone in here probably goes to the poll to vote, but you've got to help other folks. Early voting starts October 21st. The other thing I'm going to tell you is don't forget who you are and that we're the party of good. Bill and I have t-shirts over there on the table I'm going to go, Edith, and get some fans for your church thing. I also have some rubber bracelets. Taking some of our treasures and sharing those with your friends or at your church groups is a way to spread the word. I am always interested in getting more embedded in the religious community. Please invite me to attend church with you. And finally, I do say finally, I'm going to give you a quote from the late Barbara Jordan, Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. There is too much at stake for democracy to be a spectator sport. We have all got to get out of the bleachers and get on the field and play the game and get the voters to the polls if we want to see a change in South Carolina. Thank you so much for your time.
Two quick points before we bring up our final speaker about the t-shirts. People have asked how much do they cost. Both my shirts and Francie's shirts are free for the taking. The only cost is that you have to promise to wear them in public, not just around your house. You got to be out and about wearing those shirts loud and proud. All right, so if you can find a shirt that fits you, it is yours. And I have a batch of another 100 coming later this month. So we want to get these shirts out there. So feel free to take them if one fits. The second thing is, just Francie's an amazing woman. Just to remember who her opponent is, it's Senator Billy Garrett. And just three quick things about him. His solution to the teacher shortage throughout our state is to put and mandate the 10 Commandments to hang on every school classroom. He's pushing that. Somehow kindergartners need to know not to commit adultery. All right, and that's going to fix all of our school issues. His solution to small businesses and restaurants closing because of skyrocketing insurance costs, he says, well, don't sell alcohol. Well, that makes for a fun Saturday night around town, doesn't it? And then the solution, according to Billy Garrett, for unwanted pregnancies is that women should just close their legs. That's what he believes. Yeah, good luck with that. So I support Francie Kleckley, ladies and gentlemen, who's going to work on real solutions to the problems that we face.